Hello everyone! On Sunday it's election day in Switzerland, which means that all Swiss citizens, they get to vote for their preferred representatives. So I thought I would take the chance, the opportunity to explain to you why I don't vote. So, I feel privileged to be living in Switzerland, but it does not mean that I agree with the systems that are installed. And the first one that I want to cover is the democratic system. And let me just show to you why it is that I don't vote. So first of all, the first reason why I don't vote is the golden rule. It's the first one here. And the golden rule implies that I treat others in a way that I would like to be treated myself. That also means that I don't force my will upon others, unless of course I'm a masochist, but I'm not. I want my opinion and my lifestyle to be respected, and in return, I respect your lifestyle and your opinion, and I don't force my will upon you. Now, what democracy does is the majority of the voters, or let's say there's a voting and the majority says yes and the minority says no. It means that the will of the majority is forced upon the minority. And I do believe that it's the most sacred thing that we cherish, free will. That I respect your free will as much as you respect mine. And the process of democracy, really, it infringes upon that rule. It violates the golden rule. And that's why I choose to step out of it and not take part in forcing my will upon others. So do whatever you want as long as you don't harm anyone. And I do whatever I want. I express my true authentic self without any infringements from your part. So I'd love to create this kind of win-win situation and to obey the one rule that I do believe makes sense, and it's the golden rule. Secondly, the democratic process, when you think of it and when you expect full coherence, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. Now, there are two approaches when it comes to justification of a democratic process, or let's say there are two assumptions. First assumption is, and I describe it here, people need institutions to tell them what to do. So basically, they haven't emancipated from children, really. So they need a patronizing institution to tell them what is allowed and what's not allowed. Otherwise, there's chaos. So that means that the individual doesn't have the authority to decide what is right and what is wrong. And I wrote down a 0 next to this assumption, because the 0, it means that there's 0 authority to decide what is right and what is wrong. That's why the childlike citizen, if you will, needs institutions to tell them what to do. Now, when we look a little bit further, who gets to elect the representatives? Who gets to elect the members of the institutions like the parliament? It's the individual citizen. But when you presume that the individual citizen cannot decide what's right and wrong, and needs higher authority to decide, it also does not have the authority to tell others what's right and wrong. It does not have the authority to elect representatives. Got me there? And just because there are many, say, children coming together who cannot decide for themselves, who each have a 0 to their authority, it still ends up in 0. Just because a lot of people come together, they cannot fend for themselves, they cannot decide what's right and wrong, it doesn't mean that suddenly when a lot of them come together and vote for something in the same direction, it does not mean that suddenly they have the authority to say what's right and wrong. So let's be very clear and coherent about this. So the first presumption is people need an institution to tell them what's right and wrong, because otherwise there's chaos. They're bad inherently, so they need higher authority to tell them what's good and what's not. The other presumption is, and that's the second one here, it's signaled as like the bigger person, like a bigger, strong man that I drew, because that's the one who is empowered. The other presumption is men are inherently good and they get to use their minds in a way that makes sense, so they can make a decision for themselves what is good and what is not. That then consequently also means that I would say, empowered being who has authority over himself gets to elect representatives. That will consist then of the members of the institutions, albeit the parliament or the executive or whatever it is that you vote for. Now here's another fundamental contradiction. Let's presume that you as an individual have the authority to decide what's right and wrong. It also means that you don't need a higher authority to tell you what's right and wrong, because you can make the decision yourself. You're a sovereign being. Got me there? So it does not make sense whether you presume that men are basically children and need institutions to decide what's right and wrong, or if you hold the opinion that men are sovereign beings, and it also means that they have the authority to elect others, but they don't need higher institutions to decide what's right and wrong. Got me there? Very good. Now, I don't want to just nag about what I think is fucked up and what is wrong and why I don't vote. I want to give you an alternative. And there are already alternatives, but you gotta think outside of the box. So there is a system called sociocracy. And what sociocracy entails, to tell you about it in a nutshell, is that it's a decision-making process that involves all of the members, and a decision can only be made once there are no members that oppose a certain proposition. Now, it has already worked in communities, and there's also the representative model of it. So basically you elect representatives for a broader area in a sociocratic process. So there have been successful experiments about this already. And these systems especially work well in smaller communities. So if you are a proponent of least government possible, just like I am, because I want to empower the individual, then sociocracy is certainly a valid option. And it works best in like smaller areas. But it's also thinkable that it might work in broader areas as a representative model. Secondly, another alternative. You can build your own tribe according to what you believe in, according to the mission that you want to fulfill. You know, maybe you want to get rid of all the plastic in the oceans. There are so many ways of how you can build a tribe, of how you can kickstart that idea. There is an enterprise called 4Ocean, I think, and it's two surfer dudes who decided to come up with a way to cleanse the oceans, to rid them of plastic waste. And that's what they did. And you can do the same thing with your mission. There are online platforms like Kickstarter, and also and you can leverage not just like the internet per se, but then also social media platforms to gather people around your vision and your mission, so you can do this thing together, and you can find the fundings to do that as well, which makes like the archaic system of the state and taxes, etc., makes it all obsolete. And furthermore, a third alternative that I really want to mention is blockchain technology. Now, most of the people, they know blockchain technology only from Bitcoin, but I don't want to go too deep into like what it is and what the technology is about, but in a nutshell, it's a decentralized system that allows you to exchange value thanks to the advancements of technology globally. So also here, you don't need the boundaries of like the archaic state anymore. You can do it yourself. If you want to clean the oceans, create a Clean the Ocean coin. Get the funding like this and create a tribe like this. Leverage technology to do that. This is basically it. I truly want to empower whoever is looking at this video. And one thing is by sharing what I believe in, share about my lessons, and then also share what alternatives there are, what tools there are for you to become a truly self-empowered being, and the democratic process, as far as I know, as good as the Swiss system might be in comparison to other countries. It's just not empowering at all. It creates and perpetuates a system that patronizes the individual. And it's time that we grow up. It's time that we empower ourselves. And I stay committed to that mission.